Yo, Trevor.
Expensive.
So, I'm just going to do a quick rundown of my Red Dead Redemption 2 comic. And yeah, the genesis of it is talked, I bullshitted my way into a job as a video game tester, having never played a video game other than Super Mario World or something on a Game Boy. And then I got
Right.
the job, and I was like, "Oh, I need to get, I need to brush up on my gaming." So Trevor lent me his PS4. So the first game I played was Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I was just so stoked about the game that I just like wanted you to play it. I was like, hey, I'm not playing a PS4 right now. Just take the whole console and just get lost. Like, get in it, do it.
Yeah, and but it was like March 2020, and so it was like, well, everyone's self isolating. Can't start this job. Sorry, Trevor. I don't want to don't want to um yeah, infect you or vice versa. So I guess I'll just have to hold on to your PlayStation and play Red Dead all day.
Yeah, which you don't even need for the job anymore. But
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's a very compelling game, and I really like the photo function. So I took loads and loads of photos all the way through all the little Easter eggs of things like this guy who crashed his flying machine.
uh,
And then yeah, and then after I eventually gave back the PS4 after playing the game all the way through, I printed off all these photos and stuck them in a photo album and sent them to sent them to Trevor.
you know, I have it right here. Let me grab it one sec, because that'll really add to it.
Yeah, awesome. So so yeah, basically went through, and every time I saw something that I thought was very compelling, I'd pause the game and then use the awesome photo function to get a snap. And yeah, ended up with dozens and dozens of them, from cool glitches to cool parts of the game. And then for the Dunedin Comic Anthology battle, they had a theme for this issue, which is coming out soon, which is Western. And my plan was initially to go through all these photos, pull out the best images, and then try and tie them together in some kind of order that made sense, and then try and make a story that I thought was worthwhile. Um, but yeah, I found that the story in the game after a while began to annoy me because I had no interest in following around Dutch and Micah just always insulting me and calling me Black Lung or whatever.
Right.
And after meeting Charlotte Belfour in the out in the country, I was like, oh, this is how this guy should be redeemed. So
Right.
it's the first fan fiction I've done. Anyway, this is Pure Ref. It's a great piece of software just for like dumping stuff in and then rearranging them. So I kind of picked out all the best images that I liked and then put them in order. And so this is sort of my working draft version of the story. And yeah, I really love that throughout the game the developers had put these like things scratched into walls and scratched into drawers that you'd open and find.
Yeah. Super creepy.
Super creepy. But yeah, my main methodology for the story was trying to tie each image to the previous or next one. So, you know, I rearranged it like probably a dozen times. I even printed it off and cut them out and rearranged the order of them. And then yeah, just got them into an order I like, and then the the story kind of fell together like that. I was like, all right, so the overall arching story is the guy leaves the camp because he gets tired of it and gets tired of all the killing. And this tedious fool with a song about a ring dang do.
Oh,
And
uncle.
yeah, and then he goes basically off on his own on an adventure, and then realizes that he needs to be back with people, and then returns to um, Charlotte Balfour's, a place where he initially stood on her roof, planning to go down the chimney and murder everyone in the house. Um, so yeah, basically that was the idea. Kind of, classic storytelling. Someone has a call to adventure, leaves on the adventure, finds some kind of issue, overcomes it, and then sort of returns in a way.
Yeah.
So
Hero's journey.
yeah, classic hero's journey, but the idea being taking Western, like classic Western tropes of like all sorts of things, but basically the idea of the West kind of being the last chance for outlaws and gunslingers to be out in this lawless place before uh, proper civilization and laws and capitalism kind of take over. But rather than having the outlaws kind of not being able to grapple with it, having my character kind of move on and grow and be redeemed in a way that I thought was a bit more optimistic than than the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the good ending of the game is kind of sad. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Do you have anything to weigh in about it, Trevor?
I mean, that sounds super cool. I like the idea of having the alternate ending because I feel like some of Arthur's decisions near the late game weren't making much sense. He should have branched off earlier than he did. I also wanted to take the moment to show off the picture album that you sent me.
Yeah.
This is Spencer's vacation photo album from his time in the world of Red Dead Redemption during COVID.
I wonder if there's some way I can make this bigger. Sorry, can you show that again, Trevor?
Yeah, it's wicked. And there's like 20 pages or so of just printed out all his favorite snaps, give little captions. So this isn't laid out like a story, it's just like a vacation photo album.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. I consider myself very well repaid for having you borrow the PS4 for months. Great. And you even drew the little guy on the front.
Yeah, and I went through and put the names of all the places as if I was there on holiday.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So with the finished story, I wanted to make it 4 pages, and the editor was like, "All right, it's got to be 4 pages." And although I kept refining the story, I get down to less and less pages, and so I eventually decided to have one panel on each page that would be much bigger to give you a chance to kind of rest, but also draw your attention to that, and then see links between the larger images. And the main link between them. See, this is an earlier version. In the final version, this frame here is a lot bigger. And then so this one here, which is Arthur, this fire behind him, which is pretty compelling image, I think. Although I changed the name of the place that was on fire to Bella Vista to reference The Curse of Millhaven by Nick Cave. Love to put little Easter eggs in my comics like that. Yeah, and so like the unifying thing of the large images on each page was to have something related to fire and the themes of, the kind of yeah, that was like a thematic thread. So in the first one, it's like fire as a force of destruction and chaos, which very much is like what his life is about destroying on behalf
The gang.
of the gang. Yeah, and then I made it that that he felt like that was the largest mark that he's made on this earth. And then the second one, it's a campfire, which is like a sense of home, because it's the camp, but it's unfulfilling because he has to share it with these these guys with vacuous vulgarities, terrible songs that might only amuse a child or a fool. And then and then and then on the third one, it's him in front of the fire. Hang on, I may as well flick to the final version. So the third page, he's on his soul searching mission, I guess. Getting some solitude in front of a fire, thinking deeply. And then the final one is in front of this hearth, which is a symbol for being at home, being accepted into a new household, a new brighter future with leaving behind the outlaw life, settling down. And I wasn't sure if that was like an obvious like thematic thing of the fire throughout it, and I was concerned that maybe it was cheesy if it was like too obvious, but I like there being some kind of cohesiveness to things, like things linking together, things linking from the start to the end, foreshadowing, basic storytelling shit like that.
As someone who wasn't looking for themes, when you showed me the first draft of this, I did not notice the fire as obvious. So.
Okay, good. But yeah, and then and injecting a little bit of humor into it as well. I in the first chapter of Blood Meridian, the judge, when he first appears, accuses the Reverend Green of engaging in Congress with a goat.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was such a hilarious turn of phrase, and that screenshot was so good, I had to use it.
Oh man, I just was like, yeah, of course, I know what that means, and I forgot that's from Blood Meridian. That's a great reference.
Yeah, and I love the touch that they put a what do you call it, a ribbon, like a prize ribbon on the on the hog. It's the finest hog. It's the prize hog.
I mean, if you're gonna stoop so low, it's the prize hog.
Yeah, I actually had some false starts on this story. I initially wanted it to be like based on the same screenshots, but with ferrets instead of people. But I didn't get very far.
Like Photoshop them in.
I was going to redraw everything as well, but I started using Clip Studio Paint recently for another project, and I just really liked it. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll use Clip Studio Paint instead of Blender, which was what I was initially going to use. And there's this really awesome feature where you can take an image and then apply this dot screen to it. So that's the original photo, and then use this thing to find all the edges to darken it up, and then apply the dot screen, because this final thing will be risographed, and I find that risograph stuff for me looks a lot better, and I can have more control if I add a dot screen to things, and it
Hmm.
also makes it look like, uh, you know, more. It ties it more to classic comic printing, Ben-Day dots, Roy Lichtenstein kind of stuff,
Right.
and also it makes it a little less clear that the original image is from a video game. Like it could be an actual photograph that's just been reduced for print.
Hmm.
Um, the one
Cool.
note that I got from the editor was that he didn't like the typography, so I went through and hand lettered everything.
Hmm.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. I didn't get very far with Blender. I ended up cell shading a horse with a yeah cell shading in different styles, and then um, adding a ferret to it as well. But I was like, oh, this is going to take forever to to repose this horse in yeah in all the different modes. Uh,
Right.
yeah. So yeah, fully rigged horse. I added a cell shader to it, but yeah, I didn't get very far with the ferret. I think there's another version of this where I just hand drew a ferret and then just use silhouettes throughout. But but yeah, I think I cooked up a pretty compelling story for that, so I might use that in a later version where it's about a. It was based on another part of Red Dead Redemption where I had this horse that I absolutely loved, and after camping for so long and hunting with this horse, I really built strong connection, and then we were we were out in the grizzlies, and the horse fell down a steep thing and died, and it was very tragic. And so
Yeah.
and then there was another part of the game where also in the grizzlies I was trying to get the fastest horse that's in the game, and
Hmm.
spent days like camping out and stuff trying to get it. And I was like, if I meld those two, I could do like a really great um Moby Dick type story of this guy who's his horse died when he was out trying to lasso this wild horse because it was very strong and very fast,
Hmm.
and his horse dies, and so he goes back to get it, but
The
he's
lengths they'll go to conquer.
yeah. um yeah, so I don't know what else I can really break down about this. What do you reckon, Trevor? Is there anything that you want to chip in or ask?
Yeah, what's with the ferrets? Or are
uh,
you gonna turn into ferrets?
well, I really like the idea of taking something that's very serious, like a guy who's so driven by a kind of unquenchable, what's the word, revenge, basically, to go and get this horse, this epic Moby Dick type thing, but then also undercut everything by making it kind of silly, like having these tiny cartoon ferrets in a world that's like the West, but with regular sized horses and regular sized stuff.
Right.
Um, and also I just started drawing them, and I thought they looked really compelling rodents, and I wanted to set it in the grizzlies and the snow, so it would be a good excuse to use a lot of negative space
Mm.
to draw less stuff.
Right.
And yeah, there's some really great snow westerns, and don't see a lot of you don't see a lot of them. Uh, the next one I want to watch is The Great Silence, but
Hmm.
but yeah, that was my thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think it's just such a cool idea in general. I mean, like using the game screenshots to make your own comics out of, and uh, especially from something that you did. Man, what was that like 5 years ago? No, sorry, 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like you know building off of this thing. I should say, before when I said I felt paid back by getting the photo album, that was the wrong terminology because I wasn't, expecting anything in return. I was happy for you to play it. I was like, yes, please, like I want you to experience this game. It's amazing. But then the fact that you made this photo album was like you honored that. It was like a beautiful thing. It kind of cemented it, and now you're making more art, more comics with it, and like I just think that's so cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for putting me on this journey, Trevor.
My pleasure.
There's
It's
a
nice to replay it. Like I still have my PS4. I still have Red Dead, but I haven't touched it in years. It's making me want to go revisit.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's one thing that I really hope that people who read the comic get out of it. Either they don't know Red Dead Redemption, and so they can still hopefully enjoy the story without that as a frame of reference. But then it'll be uh, hopefully a richer experience for people who have played the game, who pick up on the references and go back to their own stories that they experienced in the game.
Hmm. Definitely.
So yeah, um, it'll be out July. No, yeah, August. It'll be out in August, I think, or late July in the Western Comic Anthology Battle out of Dunedin.
All right.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks, Trevor. And oh yeah, while we're at it, I love with these process videos seeing this sort of thing. This is all the text that I carefully wrote out by hand, which looks a little bit messy if you zoom right in on it, but um, it should be all right. And yeah, the title is ripped straight from the game.
I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Yeah, um, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think one of the things I really most enjoyed about that is trying to capture the uh what's the word, the language of the late 1890s, or you know stuff from the West, talking about using these very specific terms like um yeah, I don't know,
Humbly said.
mumbly pig, hooch, and the name of the horse is like a very outdated kind of name, Cordeline.
Definitely.
Anyway, yeah, that was my Red Dead Redemption 2 comic. Only time I've ever done a kind of fan fiction using something that already exists like that, I think.
It shows how taken you were with it.
Yeah.